Without that brought me alive. Though we're all like monsters, playing with the monsters. They brought me alive, but got no alibi. It's a lover's fight without an alibi. Took my hands without an alibi. Smoking gun, you got me on the run. We know that will come. We're all up to dawn, but how can I hide you without an alibi? It's a lover's fight without an alibi. Took my insides. I can't wait no longer. I'm playing with the monsters. Everything that brought me alive. Oh, we're all like monsters, playing with the monsters. They brought me alive, but got no alibi. It's a lover's fight without an alibi. Took my hands without an alibi.
Back from the dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're all invited to go fucking mental on this motherfucking drop. The countdown has just begun. Are you ready? Let's go.
So we're back from the dead. We're back from the dead.
Hell yeah.
Sí, para la pregunta nomás, ¿ya? ¿Estamos al aire? ¿Estamos al aire? Buenos días, los invitamos a tomar asiento. Sí, estamos ahí saliendo. Buenos días, los invitamos a tomar asiento. Los que necesiten traducción simultánea, ahí en el ingreso, por si acaso hay traductores. Buenos días a todos y todas. Damos inicio a este encuentro donde la consultora Eco International nos presentará los avances del estudio de diseño de un mercado mayorista en base a ofertas para energía, servicios complementarios y capacidad para Chile. Antes de comenzar, los invitamos a observar el siguiente video de seguridad. Por ahí viene el video.
El audio de evacuación y líderes de emergencia. Si corresponde evacuar, mantenga la calma. Evite obstruir pasillos. Asista a personas con movilidad reducida. Respete las señales e indicaciones de evacuación. Contamos con 2 salidas de emergencia y 2 zonas de seguridad. Al salir, diríjase a una de nuestras zonas de seguridad, la cual será informada oportunamente. Una vez allí, permanezca en el lugar hasta recibir instrucciones. En el Coordinador Eléctrico Nacional nos cuidamos entre todos.
Bueno, para comenzar quiero invitar al presidente del Consejo Directivo del Coordinador Eléctrico Nacional, Juan Carlos Olmeo, a dar unas palabras. Un aplauso, por favor.
Muy buenos días. Señor Subsecretario de Energía, Luis Felipe Ramos. Señor Secretario Ejecutivo de la Comisión Nacional de Energía, Marco Mancilla. Miembros del Consejo Directivo del Coordinador Eléctrico. Señor Director Ejecutivo. Estimados representantes del Ministerio de Energía, Superintendencia de Electricidad y Combustibles, Fiscalía Nacional Económica presentes. Representantes gremiales de empresas, consultores. Coordinadoras y coordinadores. En mayo pasado dimos inicio al proceso de desarrollo de un estudio para identificar las características que debiese tener un mercado mayorista en base a ofertas para Chile, como una evolución necesaria del mercado mayorista basado en costos auditados para lograr una transición energética exitosa, fomentando la competencia e integrando las energías renovables y el almacenamiento. Jeremy Riskin, en su libro La sociedad del costo marginal cero, señala que la sociedad del costo marginal cero está transformando la manera en que percibimos el valor, centrándose más en lo intangible que lo tangible. Esto implica que debemos enfocarnos en los costos de oportunidad, ya que los costos incrementales tenderán a ser nulos en el futuro. Hoy estamos dando un primer paso para difundir los avances del estudio que está realizando la consultora ECO Internacional, fruto de un trabajo desarrollado en conjunto con nuestro equipo. Los expertos de la consultora internacional han podido exponer su propuesta y recibir comentarios, consultas, dudas e impresiones, lo que de seguro les permitirá completar el trabajo que están realizando con miras a entregar un documento final en los próximos meses que sea un insumo para la discusión de este cambio. Como coordinador nos anima el objetivo de colaborar con esta discusión, aportando conocimiento y propuestas dentro del marco de acción que tenemos como institución. Cuando presentamos nuestra hoja de ruta en el año 2022 para prepararnos para operar un sistema eléctrico 100% renovable, vimos que uno de los factores críticos de éxito es la implementación de un mercado mayorista basado en ofertas. Pues tenemos el convencimiento que traerá una serie de beneficios. Por ejemplo, lograr la sostenibilidad financiera del sector eléctrico, considerando que las tecnologías renovables y los sistemas de almacenamiento tienen costo variable prácticamente nulo. Hemos estado siguiendo la discusión y sabemos que para llegar a este modelo habrá que tomar en consideración las características propias del mercado chileno, así como poner especial atención en aspectos de competencia. Ayer conversábamos con los consultores respecto a la implementación exitosa de este modelo en Chipre e Israel, mercados de tamaño similar al nuestro. Quiero destacar que el objetivo de este trabajo no es otro que proporcionar insumos para este debate, de tal manera que el nuevo modelo mercado mayorista pueda ajustarse a la realidad nacional. Estamos en un momento donde la incorporación de nuevas tecnologías de generación y almacenamiento es una realidad. Ya no es algo aislado, por lo tanto esta discusión es relevante y necesaria para lograr un desarrollo oportuno y en la magnitud requerida de la infraestructura energética para el proceso de transición energética, como se puede ver en los proyectos declarados en construcción ante la Comisión Nacional de Energía y aquellos que han presentado su solicitud de conexión ante el Coordinador Eléctrico Nacional. Agradezco el interés de quienes están presentes físicamente hoy día y quienes están conectados a través de nuestra plataforma digital. y quisiera reiterar nuestra disposición a seguir colaborando con antecedentes en estas y otras discusiones, siempre desde nuestro rol, cuyo eje central está en operar en forma segura y confiable, a mínimo costo y viabilizando el acceso abierto al mercado eléctrico nacional. Muchas gracias y aprovecho la ocasión para desearles un muy buen fin de año. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Y ahora quiero invitar también al subsecretario de Energía, Luis Felipe Ramos, a dar también unas palabras. Aplausos, por favor. Sí.
Hola, buenos días. Quisiera sumarme a los vocativos antes señalados y, en primer lugar, quisiera agradecer la invitación que me ha extendido el Coordinador Eléctrico Nacional para acompañarlos en la presentación de los avances de este estudio respecto al diseño del mercado mayorista en base a ofertas, lo que sin duda representa un gran paso hacia la reforma que necesita la industria. Porque sin duda necesitamos con urgencia una reforma del mercado a corto plazo, pero que sea consensuada por los distintos actores y que sea capaz de acoplarse a nuestra realidad. En mayo pasado, el ministro Pardow estuvo junto a ustedes en el anuncio de lo que sería este estudio y habló de la necesidad de que esta reforma salga adelante y del papel clave que tiene en la transición energética acelerada conforme a la ruta delineada por el coordinador el año 2022. Hoy conoceremos los avances que ha tenido el encargo de este estudio, que buscará entregar los lineamientos respecto a un nuevo modelo de mercado eléctrico mayorista. Y en este sentido, quiero valorar el rol protagonista que ha tomado el coordinador, que ha tomado en este sentido las riendas en esta materia, y también valorar el hecho de que con este paso, con este estudio que conoceremos hoy, se releva el elemento técnico indispensable para avanzar en los cambios que necesita la industria. Sin este insumo que nos entrega el estudio, seguiríamos retrasando esta reforma que tanto necesitamos. Agradezco también el involucramiento que han tenido los diversos actores del sector, que tienen mucho que decir, ya que su participación es vital para que esta reforma pueda ver la luz. Asimismo, me gustaría darme el espacio para invitarlos a seguir involucrados, a continuar en esta senda que lidera el coordinador y que nos llevará a tener un mercado regulado con una institucionalidad fuerte. Sin ustedes, la verdad es que esta reforma no podría estar completa. De la presentación que hoy escuchemos, podremos tener mayor certeza respecto de cómo el sistema de ofertas puede ajustarse de manera óptima a las particularidades de la realidad nacional y de qué manera podemos catalizar la incorporación de nuevas tecnologías en un entorno competitivo, impulsando así la innovación en el panorama energético. Se trata de un evento que marca un paso esencial en el proceso de modernización del mercado eléctrico, alineándose con los objetivos de la transición hacia un sistema 100% renovable para el año 2030. Finalmente, quiero compartir que nos encontramos esperanzados en que sigamos avanzando y que de una forma participativa, en que todos los actores se involucren para lograr las metas que tenemos como Estado y últimamente como país. Muchas gracias a todas y a todos y también aprovecho la oportunidad para desearles un gran fin de año y también un gran año 2024.
Para comenzar hoy día la actividad de hoy día, vamos a tener una presentación y luego vamos a tener una sesión de preguntas, ¿ya? Para comenzar, quiero invitar al doctor Alex Papaelexopoulos, presidente y CEO de la consultora Eco International, especialista en diseño de mercado, análisis de mercado y otros servicios relacionados con el mercado energético. Antes de formar Eco International en 1998, Alex fue director del grupo de reestructuración de la industria eléctrica en San Francisco, California. Ahí le tocó participar en aspectos como la definición de las reglas del mercado, la redacción de presentaciones para el regulador de Estados Unidos y el diseño de protocolos de mercado, entre otras cosas, ¿ya? Luego de la presentación se sumará a la conversación Shmuel Oren, del doctor Shmuel Oren, investigador de la Universidad de Berkeley, California, y el profesor de la Universidad Católica en Sosauma, quienes también abordarán las preguntas del público ahí, una vez que termine la presentación. ¿Ya? Alex.
Thank you, Andre. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. I will leave it here. Thank you. We're very happy to be here. We have been working now with the coordinator for several months. We have a specific scope in our contract with the coordinator. We are market designers. We're based in San Francisco, California. We have been doing markets for the last 25 years. We have done markets in many, many places in the North America, Central America, Western Europe, Eastern Europe. So after 25 years, we know really what works and what doesn't. We have developed a lot of markets that we thought by now will be out of business because what else is there to do? The fact is, though, that the markets are being evolving all the time. And now there is an environmental agenda in many, many countries. So the markets that we started 25 years ago, the scope has expanded to deal with decarbonization. Every country has an environmental agenda that we are asking from markets sometimes to do too much to solve problems that we didn't think we need to solve with markets 25 years ago. So we, in this project, we need to design a market to transition to what we call a bid-based market with the objective, the design to help with the decarbonization efforts of the country. So we need a market that deals with low carbon assets like renewables and storage and demand response. So we spend a lot of time understanding your market, the current state of the market, and what we need to do to move to the next stage. It's a journey. It's not going to happen immediately. It will take many years to get there. And the market needs to come along. That's what we see in every country. So market participants will prepare along with the coordinator for this transition. Okay. The scope of our work is those 5 tasks. You don't need to read them in detail. We need to develop the problems with the current market, the transition path for an optimal design, the optimal design based on best practices, international best practices. We'll establish the bar, and then we need to identify the gaps, how to get there through a roadmap. And we need to develop some implementation steps. That's the project. We need to finish this assignment by March. As a first step, we were asked to analyze some ISOs from the US markets. We decided to use this 4 markets: California, PJM, Texas, ERCOT, and ISO New England. In this presentation, we have detailed slides at the end in the appendix. I won't have time to go through this now, but I want to give you some comparisons about this. For those 4 markets, we analyze all these market elements: day ahead, reliability unit commitment, intraday market, there's a 50-minute market, real-time market, ancillary services market, co-optimization with reserves, locational marginal pricing, that's an established principle. We use locational marginal pricing. The FTR market, once you have LMPs, you need hedging instruments. That's what we have to hedge locational price differentials when you go from one location to another. This is the market we call FTR market. Multi-settlements systems. You have a single system now. You need to move to a multi-settlement system. This is an important principle that we'll have in our optimal design. How we go to a low carbon generation, how do we include it in our market? That's a very critical part of our project. Resource adequacy, that's the capacity market. There are different options, and we'll propose what we think is the best for Chile. Along with the bid-based market, the most important element is the market power mitigation. Now you have a cost-based system. You think you can address market mitigation. Actually, in reality, you can still have market power abuses in a cost-based system. So we need to develop a very rigorous ex-ante market power mitigation, which is especially important for concentrated markets like in Chile. Actually, many markets around the world are very concentrated. And financial markets, this is important element that we'll add at some point in the future. I know engineers don't accept that very easily. What a bank wants to do in our market? Well, they can do risk management, they can increase liquidity, that leads to better price discovery. You need that price signal for the long-term market, for the contract market. So that's an important element. We know that. We have 10, 15 years of experience on this. Everybody's getting to this slowly. Some comparison between the ISOs in the US. All of them follow basically some basic principles, the same principles that were established by the regulator, the FERC regulator, many years ago. When you see that check mark is that all of them have this, but there are certain aspects that they are different, okay? For example, all of them have a day-ahead market, binding day-ahead market with its own settlements. All of them have a reliability unit commitment for security of supply for the following day. In other words, we don't always trust the market. We didn't have this application during the energy crisis in California 20 years ago. The market can come in with a bid for load, but maybe your forecast is 5,000 megawatts more. You don't want to rely on the market. This is a backstop application to secure enough resources to meet next day's peak. All the markets have this now in the US. Intraday market, all of them have intraday market. Ancillary services, they are pretty much the same in all markets. In PJM, however, there is no bidding in the ancillary services market. That's very new. They had bidding with a bid in the ancillary services for a long time. Now they don't require bidding. Co-optimization, of course, that's a basic principle, leads to the least cost of procurement. It's good for customers. So everybody has co-optimization. LMP, everybody produces marginal prices. Everybody produces marginal prices, but all of them have an AC system, an AC power flow, except Texas. Texas has a DC system, a DC power flow. There are specific reasons that this happened. I don't need to go into technical details. The point is, we don't like this development in Texas. That's not what we'll propose here in Chile. We want an AC power flow model like the rest of the world. FTR markets, everybody has an FTR market with an LMP architecture. Multi-settlements, it's a standard design, it's best practice, we need to implement here too. Resource adequacy. Everybody has a resource adequacy except, again, Texas. They don't have resource adequacy. They rely on very high energy prices. They have scarcity pricing with no capacity market. We don't like that. There are many reasons for that. They are purists in some respects. That's the global standard, the golden standard. But practically speaking, there are reasons why we need to have a capacity market. California has a bilateral market. PJM and New England has a capacity market, and that's what we'll implement here. As you see, for this market, we pick up the best elements from all the other markets. We don't bring another market here as it is. We bring elements from other markets that we think work best. Long-term contracts, you have it, we'll improve on that, everybody has it. Power mitigation, it's a standard approach. Ex-ante mitigation, it's an integral part of the design to deal with market power. Even in big markets, you can have market power abuses, especially in the small markets, in concentrated markets, that's a bigger problem. Financial markets, all of them have financial markets. They didn't have it from the beginning. Engineers, operators, they didn't trust financial markets. It took several years. That's why we'll propose this for the later stage in the implementation. Virtual markets, again, everyone has virtual markets. And again, we'll apply this probably in subsequent phases of implementation. Scarcity pricing, everyone has an administrative type of pricing to increase the prices administratively if there is scarcity in the system. The most advanced scarcity pricing is in Texas with what we call ORDC, operating reserve demand curves, because they don't have a capacity market. So they let the prices go very high. $10,000, now it's lower, but nevertheless, $10,000 per megawatt hour. Politically, that's not acceptable in many places. You don't want to be in the 11 o'clock news that the wholesale prices hit $10,000. So they have this. For the rest of the markets, we have a capacity market and we put a lower cap. Bifurcation of the markets. I'll discuss this. This was a big deal in Europe. Politicians like to break the auctions, bifurcate the auctions based on technology. In other words, have an auction for renewables, have an auction for nuclear, have an auction for thermal. Well, that's a terrible idea. I'll explain later why this is a terrible idea. I was heavily involved in the European Union to stop this. But countries like Britain, Germany, France, at the highest level, at the presidential level, they pushed for this. Thanks God it did not happen. The economists, the regulators, the institutions stopped this with our help. We provided a lot of justification why this is not a good idea. In our meeting yesterday, somebody brought this up, that politicians may like even that here to do this bifurcation of the day-ahead market. Not a good idea. We have extensive explanation in our reports to the coordinator why this is not a good idea. So that's in summary about where we are with the US markets. They are mature. They keep working to incorporate new assets, renewable storage, demand response. So this is work ongoing. But let's come to the market here, the current market. We study your market. You have some fundamental principles that are very good. Co-optimization, you have the grid as part of the market in some fashion. In that sense, you're ahead of Europe. No European country has a transmission in the clearing of the market. They look at offers, so that's it. There's no grid. So that creates huge problems. And we see that now, especially with renewables, that they create congestion. They solve it out of the market. Germany, for example, they create problems with out-of-the-market congestion cost on an annual basis, more than 88 billion euro annual. That's more than 11%, 12% of the market. This is out of the market. That's a terrible idea. And they're trying to deal with this, moving towards nodal. In reality, they don't want to go to nodal for political reasons. So there is divergence of policy with science. When you diverge science from policy too much, you have problems, okay? So your market has some very good elements. We'll keep those elements, but of course, we need to improve in some other. Yeah. Okay. So, what modifications we're trying to implement here? Knowing and keeping the fundamental principes you already have. We'll build on that. We are looking transition to a bid-based system. There were good reasons why you had for many years a cost-based system, but we believe that now this has exhausted its value as we move to a low-carbon energy system. You need a real-time market. You have an adjustment market, but we need to formalize it with its own settlements. You need a two-settlement architecture, so the coordinator needs to develop a settlement department to do settlements. A capacity market, you have a capacity payment, but we'll propose an organized capacity market like the Eastern ISOs. A financial market at a later stage, not immediately, so people can get used to the physical market and eventually will include a financial market. An important element that may create some pushback from distribution companies. You cannot neglect the demand. The demand needs to come to the market. Right now, all the distribution companies are covered 100%. They are not doing any risk management. They pass the rates to the consumers. Passing the rates to the consumers, our experience has not been positive when you have some form of market failure. Europeans are passing all the wholesale prices to the end users. As a result, pensioners in Spain or in Italy that were making 1,500 euro a month as a pension, they get bills last year from 150 under normal circumstances to 800 euro. They could not pay. Millions of delinquent accounts. Companies went bankrupt. Retailers were bankrupt. The governments intervened with billions of dollars, with direct subsidies to pay consumers and small companies to avoid huge political problems. In the elections of last year, parties, extreme fascist parties, took over from traditional mainstream parties because of the energy crisis, because people could not pay those bills. Sweden, a very democratic country, they are run by the fascist government. Finland, they are run by the fascist government. Italy is run by the fascist government. Germany is very close to that. Why is all this? The energy crisis created a huge upheaval with the people, and now the people are losing trust to the traditional political system. So these are serious matters. We don't believe that you need to move wholesale prices to the bills of the consumers. It's a terrible idea, and we propose to change that. Cost-based system. That's what you have. It works well. There is a reason for that with exercising market power. It's a concentrating market. Proponents of this model, since you don't allow people to bid, okay, you think you solve the market power mitigation problem. Actually, you don't really do that, but nevertheless, that's what you do. There is a lot of experience, theoretical experience, and practical experience over the last 20 years. You don't, if you have cost-based market, you don't give the right or the option to the participants to include their offer what we call the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is very important. If all your system is gas, maybe you don't need a high opportunity cost that you can neglect it and approximate it. But if you are in a renewable-based system, if you have storage, if you have demand response, what's the variable cost? There's no variable cost. It's only opportunity cost. So your market is not conducive to help you move to the energy transition, to a decarbonized system, because you cannot incorporate those new assets, which will be very large in number, like renewables, storage in the future, because those assets, they have opportunity cost that you cannot neglect. So we need to take that into account. So we need to move to a bid-based system. Clearly, exercise of market power is a big deal in our business. But now we have the tools how to deal with that. We believe overall the bid-based system is more efficient because the cost-based system, because of these new assets, does not produce good prices. Not good price in the stock market means the long-term market will suffer. It's like a marriage. The one depends on the other. You need to get the right price signal to have a good long-term contract. Without that, the long-term market suffers. So we believe that the cost-based market introduces distortions with the price signal. That's not a good idea. Eventually, we need to face that reality. Many systems started from cost-based. I can tell you many systems we were involved in the last 15 years that they moved to a bid-based market eventually. But this process started 10, 15 years ago. Now we have theoretical work. Shmuel has written a paper how to do this a few years back. But companies have been going through this process over the last 15 years. Especially with the transition to low carbon, we have to do that here too. Now there is another issue. Your regulator audits the costs. But what is the cost of a storage? There's no cost. They buy and sell. There's opportunity cost only. It's very difficult to audit new assets, the costs. So you have another problem here with the auditing process. Even with hydro, you have hydro. Hydro has opportunity cost. You have a whole methodology how to deal with that. But again, it's not optimal. At some point, hydro owners need to come to the market because now you control them 100%. You need to give them some flexibility at some point. So the market we propose will provide more flexibility. More flexibility means better prices, better investment signals for investments, and optimal dispatch. You are in the business of optimal dispatch. I assume most of us here are engineers. So we care about optimal dispatch. But that will give you a good price signal for the long-term investments. Okay, so they go hand in hand. So we believe a bid-based system is the best system. Now somebody may say, and what about if I have a market failure? How about if prices go very high? Well, we know how to deal with that. As I will explain later, you can switch back with a flip of the switch for the following day, for tomorrow, to a cost-based. Because the bids, as they are coming in, will mitigate them. And they will need to meet certain protocols that will be transparent. You will operate this market. The coordinator, of course, needs to be approved by the regulator and the government, but there are specific rules and transparent protocols that you will do this. So if somebody submits an offer of $1,000, are you going to accept it? Maybe not. You will mitigate it. How you will mitigate it? We'll give you the tools how to mitigate it. In your database, you will have the costs, and you will switch the bids to the costs. So what you do now is a form of bid-based, but your bid is the cost. It should not be under normal conditions. In extreme conditions, you can switch back. So we have the safeguards to protect your system. So these are the elements that you have: the nodal market, locational pricing, uniform pricing, co-optimization. These are established protocols you already have, and we'll keep those. Day-ahead market, even though it's not binding, we'll make it binding. That's the number one that we need to do immediately. Real-time market, you need to have that too immediately. Long-term contracts, of course, and capacity markets. You have all these. We analyze as part of the project 10, 11 major areas, okay? And we proposed, and the team, the coordinator team, accepted. They gave us input. We incorporate that input with 11 areas. And those are the areas based on our experience. You can choose options, but we chose the optimal option for Chile. And based on that, we'll develop the best practice design. Number one, marginal pricing, pay us clear. You have that already, so I don't need to discuss it. It became a big issue in Europe. Politicians, when the markets don't work well, you say, a solar developer bids a price of $50, but the price in the marginal pricing is $1,000 from gas. Why needs to make all this profit? Let's get the money back. It's not a good system. It is a good system. We have proved this theoretically and practically now. No dispute there with Chile, thanks God. It was disputed last year in Europe as a result of the crisis. From the political system, we saved that. Okay. Next is the bifurcation of the market. Unified versus split in the day-ahead market. You have a lot of solar, wind. Somebody can say, have a separate auction for those assets and a separate auction for gas. It may be another auction for hydro. Well, again, terrible idea. I'll explain why. Long-term contracts as PPAs. We analyzed that extensively with financial instruments called contracts for differences, CFDs. Financial markets versus physical markets. We want both. Energy-only market, like Texas. Texas has an energy-only market. We want to implement the Texas market with scarcity, but we want also a capacity mechanism. We want to have both, because that's, we think, is the best. Capacity markets and options. There are different ways to do resource adequacy. You can have a model like California, which is a bilateral market. Again, it was established for political reasons. It's not the best design. It has some benefits, but it's not the best design because there's no transparent price. Again, for political reasons. The markets in the East, like PJM, New England, New York, they have a capacity market, an organized capacity market. That's what we'll propose here. Ex-ante mitigation, I talked about this, that's important. Virtual markets versus physical markets. We want this, we'll put this as an important element in the latter phase, let's say 5 years from now. We need to have this. It's very good. You need to do risk management. How you bid your commitment costs. You can make them offers for everything, or you can follow an ERCOT approach and have cost-based commitment costs, like start and minimum load, that have only the curve, the incremental curve, as an offer. Maybe that's a transitional mechanism for the first 5 years. Why not? And then go to a California model that all of the three are offers. Okay. Hydropower, we pay special attention to hydropower because that's an important asset for your market. Andrea, it's not going forward. Oh, I did, okay. Oh, you want to go with this, okay. Okay, I have one slide for each of those items. I will not talk about this to save time. There's no dispute, we all agree on pay as clear. The most expensive generator will set the price for everybody. Will not go to pay as bid market where everybody gets paid their bid. I bid $10, I get paid $10. Somebody bids $100, gets paid $100. That's a model that gives an incentive to people to lie. It's not a good model. We have seen that also theoretically and with a lot of empirical evidence. So no much discussion on this. Recommendation, uniform price, no much discussion. You already have it, that's what we'll have. It's very efficient, it's consistent with optimal dispatch, it strengthens competition, and it maintains the inframarginal rents that we need for investments. And very important, it gives an incentive for demand to come to the market. We need that in the country for demand to come to the market. Next item, the bifurcation of the auctions. That was a big deal. When things go bad and the prices go high, they say, why will pay low carbon assets that have zero marginal cost these huge prices set by the most expensive generator? Let's have a separate auction for those assets because there is what we call asymmetry costs of technologies. Renewable energy has capital cost, not variable cost. Gas has a lot of high variable costs with expensive gas. So let's have separate auctions. That's a very simplistic view that has many problems. And there are problems. They distort the day-ahead price. They destroy the inframarginal rents that you need for investments, the price signal that you need for capital formation, for investments, and so on and so forth. So this is important thing. We should not go there. Item 3, physical markets, long-term contract markets. We believe that the short signal from your market could be very volatile. So you need price stability, you need certainty, you need to mitigate market power, and you need this for investments and capital formation. So long-term contract markets are very beneficial, and we need to keep those. We need to keep that for those benefits. These are the physical markets. If you couple those with CFDs, contracts for differences, you have additional benefits. And the additional benefits are those down. You separate the operations from settlements. So if I have a contract with someone for 100 megawatts, if it's more beneficial to me, I can buy it from the market if it's cheaper instead of producing the power, the 100 megawatts. You make those optimal decisions based on price. You have the ability to do this with those contracts for differences. The same thing with load. So there are benefits, strongly encouraged to keep the long-term PPAs, but for certainty and stability and reduce the market power. If I tie most of my capacity to a long-term contract, I have less incentive to exercise market power because I have locked in a price in the long-term contract. With the CFDs, we separate operations from settlements. That's an important objective, so that's the benefit. And CFDs can be used by the regulator or the politicians if the prices go very high to get the money above the strike price and return this to the consumers. So there are benefits. Europeans didn't have this to a large extent last year, so instead of getting the money from the generators to return to the customers, the government was forced to use billions of dollars, and this affected their deficits that went sky high, especially in the south, in countries like Portugal, Greece, Spain, and Italy. The north is more isolated because they are richer countries like Holland, Germany, and so on. So anyway, also having CFDs, it helps you eventually bring risk management companies into the business to help the physical players with risk management that you need. Again, financial markets versus physical markets. As I said, you can have a physical contract that it's settled through the coordinador with the settlements, or you can have a contract with CFDs, and then this separates the physical transaction from the settlements. And that's an important item. So a financial entity can come to your market without having a physical asset. A bank, what do they bring to the table? They bring liquidity. This is important. Helps price discovery, helps present a good price signal that you need for long-term contracts. We're not going to do this immediately. We'll do it gradually, but at some point, all the US markets have this, as I said, because of all these benefits: liquidity, price certainty, and the other item we call cross-commodity hedging. With all these fuels now, from hydrogen to gas, right, to storage, who can give you a hedge across those products? Because they all come to the electricity market. A bank can do that because they are in the commodity business. They do risk management, so they provide some value to the market. So there are different ways to do it. I don't want to spend much time on this. We need to bring financial players. There are some standard forward energy contracts, you need some regulation, you need the regulator to monitor this and make sure it works. But I want to make a point here which is very critical. You don't have demand today in your market. The demand is covered 100% with contracts. That makes demand complacent. There is no innovation. This is 50% of the market. So you don't have it, you have only generation. You cannot have energy transition by not tapping into the demand. There is a lot of flexibility for industrial loads, commercial loads, even in buildings, a lot of flexibility. Markets need to get that flexibility as part of the market and clear the market. And many times, demand will set the price, not a generator, demand. So we want demand to come to the market. Distribution companies may disagree. They say, we don't want to do that. Well, they will still be covered by the majority of their load, let's say 90, 95%. But we need to give just very little to come to the market. That will give them the need, the incentive for innovation to come with demand response, because you as a coordinator needs the demand response as an asset to be part of your market clearing. Okay? You cannot do energy transition without demand response. Recommendation, we need a capacity market. It's a form of resource adequacy. Let me put it this way. You need the resource adequacy. There are different options, but you need resource adequacy in addition to scarcity. That's the important thing here. There are different ways to do this. You can do it California style. You can do it East Coast style with a capacity market or a bilateral market. We prefer a capacity market. Very important, I mentioned this earlier. This idea for passing wholesale prices to retail customers, it's not a good idea. Okay? The distribution companies need to absorb certain risk. They cannot pass the risk to consumers only. Now, this may sound as too radical. It's not. It has to go slowly, slowly, slowly for this to happen, but that's the best practice. That's how all the markets in the world work. And we have seen the pushback from many distribution companies, regulated utilities that don't like much that. We saw that in many, many countries. Eventually, with education and enough time, they adjust and they do great. They do better than they do in the old environment. And of course, when you apply all these instruments, you need to have a strong regulator for enforcement. Energy only versus capacity. There are people like in Texas and many countries in Europe, even though everybody's moving away from this model in Europe now because they need for security of supply. They thought if you have an energy only market, if it works well, you don't need a capacity market. Many people promote that. Actually, with all respect to my academic friends, academics like this golden standard. There are practical reasons that this does not work, though. And we need some form of a resource adequacy mechanism. There are many reasons why an investor will not recover its investment from an energy-only market. There are many reasons for that, and we see them in practice over the last 20 years. Price caps. If you let the prices go to the value of loss of load, maybe in some markets $30,000 per megawatt hour, yeah, maybe. But even then, there are other reasons. Market power mitigation. People apply very strict market power mitigation. This reduces prices. By reducing prices, you may create a disincentive for investments. So there is a loss of what we call loss of welfare with those mechanisms. There are also, let's don't hide it. I have seen that in many ISO markets. There are many manual intervention in the market. The market cannot solve all your problems. In California, for example, we have stability in San Diego. How you enforce stability constraints in the San Diego area? You do certain things that the markets does not like. They are not transparent. There is a manual intervention. Europeans do this every day, manual intervention. You have a voltage problem due to renewables. They solve it by moving up and down a conventional unit. That affects prices. As a result of all these practical interventions, you may create money with a missing money problem. Fortunately, you don't have must-run units here. California has hundreds of units in a must-run status. In other words, I want you to be online. It doesn't matter if you can be in the market. I give you a contract. I want you for reactive power. I want you for voltage, 200 hours a year. And I pay you for this, and that's it. And I want you to be there. We call this must-run reliability units. These are affecting prices. They reduce prices. So for these reasons, we have a problem. Now, here is ERCOT, that they think that we are the mandated people, that we don't trust markets, and they have ORDC curve, and the prices go up and up and up to $9,000 if there is scarcity with these operator reserve demand curves. How well has worked with them? First of all, there are arbitrary triggers and parameters that they adjust all the time. We'll propose an ORDC curve for you to have a scarcity, but we don't think it's enough. If you go to a bank to get financing for your project, the first they ask you is, do you have a capacity market? Because if there is a certain revenue, a predictable revenue, your equity to debt ratio is much better than if you're in a market that you're relying on price spikes. Then you need to put more equity in those markets, okay? So there are benefits to having a resource adequacy approach. Recommendation, we have a scarcity market, we'll put something here, but in addition, we'll put a capacity market of some sort to address the security of supply. Oh, this one you press, okay. Okay, as I said, 3 options for this. One option is a bilateral market like California. Another option is a capacity market with auction, with a forward generation commitments, with demand participation. We'll give an incentive. If demand comes to the market, they will get a capacity payment, okay? So that's an incentive for demand to come to the market, like in PJM. And there is another option with firm energy option. I have one slide for each one of them. We prefer the auctions of some sort. With a bilateral market like California, it's a deal between companies and generators. They just need to show to the ISO that they have enough resources for the next month. If you don't meet those obligations you have, you're penalized, and the penalties are high. Now, why California went this way? California knows that this is not the best model. Many people disagree, but the regulator enforces it. Why they enforce it? But if you go with a capacity market like in PJM, like in New England, that means generators from outside states will offer the product. By law, if a product crosses state boundaries, becomes FERC jurisdictional. So by doing this, the PUC loses control of the capacity market. And it's a residual anger of California regulators to the federal government because they didn't get enough support during the California energy crisis. And they want to keep the capacity market local and control it in the state. And that's what they did that. So, but the Eastern ISOs, from technical perspective, the markets, even though they have problems, they work better. So it was a political decision. The next one is the auction. This is what we have in the East. These are technology agnostic. You run the product with the spot market. This is like an option. So eventually, we need to introduce here what we call ROs, reliability options. We have designed some markets in Europe now with reliability options. We need to do this too here in the subsequent phases. So the third option, firm energy options. Hydro-dominated systems they can have this option. They procure, the regulator actually does the procurement and finance that through a reliability charge. Colombia has a model like this. It can work in parallel or in substitution with the capacity market. We'll see. You have a hydro system. We'll decide internally which of the two options we'll propose here. Recommendations, we'll have a single buyer capacity auction. This is the best model. Eventually, we'll introduce reliability auctions. Is a way of risk management. The strike price we'll put will be very high. We have learned from experience, believe it or not, the strike price Europeans are going to put at the price of the day-ahead price. That's a terrible idea because they try to deal with market power to solve the resource adequacy problem. That's not a good idea. So we need to have a high strike price here. So that's the recommendation. This is our favorite slide in some respects, is the market power mitigation. You cannot have a bid-based system without ex-ante power mitigation. If tomorrow you start having a bid-based market, you need to have the ex-ante market power mitigation. Europe does not have this. We proposed this. We did studies with software. If they had this, the prices would be 30% lower. Many people took advantage of the scarcity. In the gas market, they raised the prices were not mitigated. So the only mitigation Europeans have is with the ex post with the regulator. Somebody files a complaint, they enter into negotiations in closed room, and after 3 years, they file a lawsuit, and maybe after 5 years, somebody pays somebody else. That's not what we propose here. You can have the ex post mitigation, but coordinator needs to have ex-ante mitigation every day when the offers come in. There are different structural tests that we'll propose. View those as mathematical screens. So when an offer comes into your system, goes through these mathematical screens, it takes maybe 10 minutes. At the end, the offer stays the same or is mitigated with the process that we clearly present. It's transparent, it's quick. You will manage, you will implement the software. The regulator, of course, need to approve the rules, okay? So that's how we'll do the ex-ante power mitigation. Now, there are certain triggers to give to the ISO, in your case, how strict your mitigation should be. It depends on your history. California, for example, has a very strict mitigation because of the experience they had with the energy crisis. So in California, if you are suspect, you are guilty. In other markets, like New York, if you are suspect, you are not guilty, so I need to do another test. And if you are guilty, then I will mitigate your price. But in California, at PJM, if you have the potential to exercise market power, I cut you, I mitigate you. In some other markets, they are more lenient. There is another test. We'll decide if you, as coordinator, you want to go with a stricter approach or a more lenient approach. It's up to you. There will be a third step to do in the process. If you decide to mitigate somebody by just having the potential, meaning being suspect. So you have a concentrated market who are very aware of that. So maybe you need to go with a strict mitigation, which means you may resort back to a cost-based system because one option for mitigated bids is your cost. Another option is to use a negotiated price between the market participant and the coordinator. Another option is, if your offer is high, to use the average of the last 6 months' prices, market-based approach, or a cost-based approach. The market participant decides what option they want. You put in your database, you switch it to that offer, and that's it. Everything is automatic. So I move on to element 8. This is the virtual markets. If we have a formal real-time market, the prices are very volatile. You see, they go up and down. red is kind of the day-ahead prices. They hover, they are more certain. So if I'm a market participant and I see this picture, what's the incentive that I have? If I'm a generator, why should I go to the day-ahead market? I make more money in the real-time market. So I have an incentive to play the system. During the energy crisis, we were designing the California market then. I worked with PG&E before. Who you think gamed the system? You think the traders? The generators? The utilities, the regulated utilities that they were supposed to serve the customer played with the system. They were bid into the CalISO every day, zero load in the whole Bay Area. We knew that it was not zero, but they were bidding zero. They play with the market. That's a form of virtual bidding that we want to avoid. So basically, it's a way, a financial way, for having convergence of the day-ahead prices with the real-time prices. So if I'm a generator and I see prices in real time being very high, I don't need to skip the day-ahead market or rather bid it. I can offer a bid in the virtual market in the ahead and liquidate it in real time. So I have certain responsibilities. If I have a virtual bid as a bank, I need to liquidate it in real time with a real-time price. That gives me the discipline to converge prices, and that's a good thing for people to play both markets in a way that does not impact the reliability of the system, and you have convergence of prices, which is a very important objective. So that's what we propose. Operators and engineers don't like this. They think that they affect the real market too much. Think of it this way. Imagine having a huge financial player like Goldman Sachs come into the market and with a huge virtual bids, they overcrowd the physical market. That's not good either. So we know how to deal with that. We put position limits. The market now in most places in the US, the virtual market is, let's say, from 7 to 12% of the physical market. And we keep it in that level because they offer important benefits to the market. And if you guess correctly, you make money. If you don't guess correctly, you lose your share. So people who are in the risk management business, that's their game. That's what they do. So that's how the virtual market works. Even in California, we didn't establish it immediately. We established this after 2 years. Okay, we want to give enough confidence to the operators that this can work. Now, everybody has it. So price convergence is a big deal. We want to avoid what we call implicit virtual bidding. We need to avoid that. Implicit virtual bidding is there is no such market, and physical assets, loads or generators, play the market chasing higher prices. We don't want that. If you give them the official financial tool to do this, they don't need to play with the market in a way that negatively affects reliability. So we go on a two-settlement system. We go on virtual transactions after 2 years, and we need to have a virtual bidding open to risk management companies. Okay, commitment cost, very quickly. There are 3 entities that you bid into the market: startup costs, minimum load cost, and incremental costs. The question is, if you go to a bid-based system, you have offers for all 3. We may follow a conservative approach. And for the startup cost, the minimum load cost, we go with the costs, like in Texas. And eventually, everything becomes an offer 3-4 years later, like in California. So we have flexibility how to do it, how fast we go, how slow we go. So I don't want to say anything more on this, but that's what we propose. Hydro, your team was kind enough to give us documents, make a presentation to us to understand how you operate hydro here. And you operate hydro, and we understand how you do it. You come up with a future value of water. That's your variable cost. You run a multi-year optimization. You have customized software that you got from PSR. You run it. You come up with monthly values. You keep running it because it's very uncertain, a couple of times a week. And you have these future values. Oops. You have these future values as the variable cost. You enter that in a unit commitment, and you run it every day in the day-ahead matter by using the day-ahead optimization. So, but the variable cost of hydro is very uncertain. There are a lot of these constraints, hydrological conditions, irrigation contracts that you have. Everybody has them. Another uncertainty. Right now, the way we understand it, you have total control of hydro. The hydro owners have no control whatsoever. You schedule it, you dispatch it based on the analysis you do, these optimization things. Well, this is the best way to do it. Hydro is not coming to the market, and we say, maybe you can keep this for a few years after introducing some other items, but eventually, eventually, we think this is suboptimal. We're going to give some flexibility slowly to the market, to the hydro owners. That flexibility, you can produce the future value of water, you can give them this, and you can give them a range to move up and down, let's say 10% or 5%, and you relax that range after several years. So you can keep total control for first 3 years, and then you start relaxing it, giving them the flexibility to submit an offer around the future value of water that you give them or they produce it themselves. In the US market, they produce this variable cost, this opportunity cost themselves. But you can do this for many years, keep running your processes, you producing the value, you tell them, okay, give me an offer around, with a range around this value. And that maybe that's good for some time. So certain things we can do here too. So our recommendation is to move to a bid-based system, eventually for hydro, by giving them that future value of water and allow them to play and submit an offer within a very strict range. So that's the idea about the hydro treatment. So as you see, our objective is to go gradually towards an optimal design. And this will take maybe 7 to 10 years. It's not immediate. It will take a long time. We understand that. That's what it takes in many other countries, including the US. Okay. What you see here is all the market elements. And I compare your current market with a new market. Where you see yes, yes, that means you have it. But if you see no in the first column, that means you don't have it. And eventually, you need to build it. For example, a real-time market, I start from the bottom. You don't have it, you need a real-time market. Even in day-ahead, it's not binding. You need a two-settlement system. Eventually, you have it. Bid-based, you need to go there. As I said, you need to go there. Unit commitment, you have cost-based. Eventually, we need to go to bid-based. Mitigation, you don't have it. We need to have it. Reliability options for capacity, you don't have it, we need to build it. So that gives you an idea about the overall scope of the new design. And I will close with this. This is part of the future work we'll do till March. The question is, what do we develop first, what next, and how we go to the last stage. So we'll have a roadmap, how to get there. So we propose, for the first 5 years, immediately to have a real-time market, and a day-ahead market, to have a two-settlement system, and go to bid-based immediately. But later, go with a virtual market, scarcity pricing, put it immediately, capacity market with the reliability options later, ex-ante mitigation immediately. So there are certain things you can do immediately. And even for the items in the first column, we can have them in 2 stages. We can put tethers fast, get the vendor, build it. But this is, to do this, just for a simple day-ahead real time, it will take 2 years just to build the software and test it. And then you need to go with a parallel run between the two systems for a year, let's say. In some markets, we have done this forever. Some people say, I'm ready to go. Depending how many problems we find during the testing, we may go after 6 months, especially if you have done a good job getting the market with you, the market participants, to be ready themselves. We have a market now in Europe. The ISO is ready, but the market participants are not ready. They are asking for delay of another year to develop their own systems. So we delay the opening of the market because the market is not ready, even though the ISO is ready. So you need to do a good job educating the market with seminars and everything. You need to have a couple of people that are representatives of the market participants that answer questions 24/7 with these people in terms of their software. So it's a process. When the time comes, we can help you establish the organization, how this works, how many people in each job to do this, to do it right for the customization of the market. So that's where we'll be at. We'll stop here because that's our current scope of our work. And I will close, I think, with this. I don't know if I have another slide. No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Alex. Ahora vamos a abrir el espacio para preguntas. Vamos a tener un micrófono que va a estar andando ahí. Si alguien necesita hacer la pregunta en español, no hay problema porque tenemos traducción. Lo que sí les pido es que lo hagan al micrófono para que la traducción pueda escucharlo. Y bueno, invito a Enzo y a Samuel acá al escenario. Vamos a correr un poquito las... Sí, sí. Bueno, no sé si alguien ya tiene el micrófono, digamos, o allá. Una pregunta a Analía.
Thank you very much, Alex. Great scope of work. I believe it's a tremendous challenge, mostly regarding the baseline from where we begin currently in the Chilean electric market. So I was wondering if you can have a view or an approach related to what's currently happening in this market in relation to the amount of distributed generation capacity. It's already installed around 2.5 gigas, and probably at the end of the year we'll have another 2 gigas, and mostly solar. So how do you see the managing of this tremendous reform, this wide, very range, open range wide reform, with the fact of 5 gigas, let's say, of small distributed media generation units out of an amount of maximum demand of 11.5 gigas probably that the system currently has? Thank you.
Great question. Me? Okay. We do a lot of work on distributed energy resources. It's a major challenge. The ISOs do not have visibility in many of those assets that is increasing from rooftop solar, distribution storage, renewable and distribution systems. Because at least in the US, the jurisdiction of the ISOs stops at the T&D interface. Now, there are laws that require the ISOs to change their market and allow participation of distributed energy resources. The first step for this to happen, because we're talking about a very large number of small devices, is to develop what we call aggregators. We have the legal structure in the US and actually in Europe. Europe, for political reasons, actually they are ahead of the US in local distribution assets to come to the market. But you need for that to reduce the interface impact in terms of number of assets that can go to the market through aggregation. So the ISOs will deal with aggregators, and the aggregators will deal with their own market participants. So that's number one, how you do aggregation. And that's very challenging, just doing the aggregation. Once you do the aggregation, you need to expand your design of your market to integrate those assets into your market. We will have in our scope certain models for demand response and batteries, for example. But again, we have a limitation on this, how to do this within the current scope. But there is a lot of work. We expect all the action 5 years from now to move to distribution. The question is how you get that value from those small assets through aggregation to the wholesale markets. What we believe will happen, there will be distribution markets as well. We call them DSOs as opposed to ISOs. So if I'm an aggregator in distribution, I can go to the local market, DSO market, or I can go to the wholesale market through offers again. So the biggest challenge the US ISOs face is they don't have visibility. And that concerns them because it affects their scheduling. California, for example, 25% of the demand now is in those assets the ISO does not have. So when they do real-time market, for the next 5 minutes, they do it based on the information they have. So that affects AGC because real-time market affects AGC. So in the middle of the 5-minute market, let's say that in 2 minutes, something happens and the cloud cover comes and the solar changes, and that affects AGC. That's a reliability problem. So many ISOs are asking from their regulators to intervene with the FERC regulator and with NERC, which is responsible for reliability in the US, to change the criteria for operating the real-time market, because the lack of visibility creates not only market problems, but also security problems. And that's more fundamental than the market problems it creates. Okay, so everybody is back on the designing board, do design actually. And these ISOs have been operating for 20 years. And here we are trying to go to step 0 to step 1, and then on top of that, we have to deal with DRs in a distribution level. So in summary, aggregators, you need aggregators. So if you have 1,000 small assets, there is one representative that deals with the ISO. That reduces the volume of the transactions with the ISO. The aggregator deals with its own, let's say, small customers. They need better forecasting. They need better tools to forecast the need. The ISO needs to have a forecast for tomorrow to line up resources to meet the market at the balancing market for tomorrow. If you don't know 20 to 30% of your volume, there is a problem that affects reliability, let alone markets. So forecasting, aggregation, better tools for outages, all these are tools that the markets need to deal with those distributed energy resources. But it's a great asset to have. We tend to focus on the positives because they bring value, they bring flexibility. We want them in the market, but there are challenges, technical challenges. Thank you. I don't know if you guys need to add.
Yeah, the moving to a bid-based system is the first step that would allow you to deal with the kind of resources that you are talking about, because there is absolutely no way that the coordinator can have visibility and cost information on when it comes to thousands of small generator or small resources in the market. So one model, you know, of course, you know, the aggregation is important, and but the next step is to develop all kinds of participation models. One of them, for example, is to aggregate those small plants into what we call virtual power plant, VPPs, which are going to be kind of, we try to shape them in so that from the point of view of the system operator or the wholesale market, they will look like a regular generator, except that it's a generator that is composed of many resources. And then we need to develop all kinds of protocols about telemetering and the level of reliability, or when you make a bid, what's the tolerance that you allow in delivery, and so that the system operator will feel confident in deploying a virtual power plant the same and controlling it the same way that they deploy a regular plant. So, but any of those solutions cannot happen unless you first move to a bid-based system.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know if that helps your question, but that's a serious issue. Sometimes we look at the benefits only and not at the challenges.
No sé si hay quien nos levante la mano por acá, Bruno.
Thank you very much, Alex, for your presentation. I have a question regarding site payments. What would be your view or the panel's view regarding make-a-whole payments, as here in Chile we have hourly make-a-whole payments for thermal units or units in general which are running at minimum stable levels. What would be, I don't know, in PJM they went from 24-hour, like integrating revenues into 1 hour, then they came back. Maybe if we do such a change here in Chile, some units could be underwater, so I would like to know your vision regarding that. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Make-whole payments is a necessary thing we need to deal with in a unit commitment-based markets that we have here. They had at real time eventually. Now, make-whole payments are needed because the system is non-convex. It's very small. If you look at California, the make-whole payments were, let's say, 0.3% of the total volume. That has increased to 1%, 1.2%. This is much better than what we have in Europe, which is 11% in Germany. So, but with a renewable-based system, a lot of renewables, you start seeing more non-convexities. You force gas power plants to be at a minimum. You have environmental constraints, a lot of externalities. So we're afraid that the make-whole payments will increase slightly. It's a pricing issue. There are a lot of theory about LMPs and how you can reduce that. We have done a lot of theoretical work too about make-whole payments. I can share you several papers on this. But right now, the situation is manageable. It's a necessary thing. You need to pay generators to keep them whole, okay? Because the price reflects only the variable cost, that sometimes the commitment costs are not being, paid by the LMP. They're higher. So on a daily basis, what we do in many markets, on a daily basis, you will keep the generators whole by making that payment. Again, that payment is out of the market. In summary, it's very small still. In most of the markets, is no higher than 1.2, 1.3%. Okay, it's a pricing issue. Pricing becomes a big challenge, even in the nodal markets, US style. As we increase the penetration of renewables, the system becomes highly non-convex. Maybe Shmuel has things to say.
Well, yeah, make-whole payment is among other things, also provides a strong incentive for generators to participate in central dispatch, as opposed of submitting just self-scheduled bill. And so in the US, that's kind of the carrot that you give to generators, that you say, if you participate in the central dispatch, then we will guarantee that over 24 hours you are not going to lose money. If you self-dispatch, then you take the you take the risk of starting up your generator and then participate. We see different behaviors to what extent that works, and again, it's a question of, like, for example, in ERCOT, we have seen a phenomenon that because the startup and no-load cost have to be verified, they are cost-based rather than bid-based. A lot of generators have opted out from submitting themselves to, and they are now self-dispatching because they don't want to, it's no longer attractive. But in markets like California, where those startup and no-load costs are offer-based, it gives an opportunity to generators, for example, in their startup costs, to reflect certain constraints that are otherwise cannot be represented, like if they have a limit on the number of startups due to reliability constraint or limit on their emissions. They reflect that through the shadow price on that constraint in their startup bids, and that's one of those things that is a good justification why you want to move to a bid base, because that's an opportunity cost rather than a real cost that the system operator can never see when they do that. So make-all payment, we're going to see more and more of that, because as Alex said, generators are now operating, and what we see is all kinds of proposals for example, integer relaxation in the unit commitments and all kinds of methods to deal with non-convexities, but it's going to be part of the equation.
And I think that, that's exactly why we need to move to the bid-based system. I mean that we have been done a cost-based system very successfully until now, but in the future, it's for sure that more renewable is going to enter, storage is going to enter, and you can see the whole discussion about the regulation of storage is because if they want to participate in different markets, in a cost-based system, you need those side payments to motivate the storage, to participate in to see how I'm going to recognize the contribution to reserves of the storage. And those all administrative tasks that the regulator need to do, it's going to be solved by side payments in a cost-based system. If you move to the bid-based system, you can organize everything in the bid system. So that's another reason to really simplify that, to move to the bid-based system.
Por ahí hay una tercera pregunta.
Okay, so thank you very much. Andre Vargas from Acciona. I wanted to ask a bit more about storage, that you started the subject there. If you could comment a bit on the role in the market of battery storage, the main revenue streams, and if you have proposed any special considerations in the bidding strategy or whatever for storage.
We have been doing storage modeling for ISOs for the last maybe 7-8 years in Europe and the US. That's a major challenge. The math is very complicated. I tell you what is the interest of the market participants, which is not exactly the same with the interest of the ISO. In this case, there are a little bit different interests. Let's look at the world from the ISO perspective. We want storage to come to the market on its own as an asset, or being collocated with the solar plant in order to solve the intermittency problem, do what we call shaping and firming. The most revenues come if the storage come with a solar power plant, so it can behave like the conventional generator and have revenues from the energy market, ancillary services market, and capacity market. Now, storage on its own, if the regulation market is very healthy, like in PJM, they can have a good financial outcome just participating in regulation. That on its own can give them enough incentive and enough money to be in the market, in the regulation. But every study we do many studies for solar and storage people, they want to be as a firm asset participating in ancillary services, all of them, regulation mainly because they can respond very fast, also energy, opportunistically for energy arbitrage, but not mainly, and also for capacity. So if they participate in that, that's a very good revenue model for those assets. I can tell you, California is a leader in all the US markets. Right now, there are 6,000 megawatts of storage. I repeat, 6,000 megawatts of storage in the last 4 or 5 years. That's an unbelievable, penetration of storage in the market because the revenue model can support those assets. Most of the new developments come together with the solar. Solar comes together with storage, but we still have independent developments with storage. Now, in terms of the ISO modeling, if a storage device participates in the ancillary services market, let's say your storage, you win in the regulation market or in the spin user market 50 megawatts, you get 50 megawatts. Now, in real time, you need to deliver. If I'm calling you as an ISO, you need to give me that energy. Now, for you to give me that energy, you need to have state of charge to be able to deliver it. How do I know as an ISO that the state of charge is in that point, I can get the energy I need? That's a huge issue. So the ISOs in the entire country, but mainly in California, who is a leader in the storage development, they start putting constraints in the operation of the storage devices. And they say, look, I have a problem in the evening. I have a lot of solar during the day. I may have even over generation, but I want you from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. To have you at 8 p.m. when is the peak of the DAC curve, I want you to have the maximum state of charge in the afternoon at 4 p.m. How do I guarantee that I have the maximum state of charge at 4 p.m.? I put a constraint that you will be at the maximum stage of 4 p.m. That is not a good constraint for the operators of storage. They say, you impose on me my operation. You want me to be at the maximum charge at the 4 p.m. in the afternoon, but I'm chasing higher prices. I may exhaust all my state of charge in the morning. You want me at 4 p.m. Pay me opportunity costs. That's another clear case why your market needs to move to a bid-based system to be able to do this, because you cannot operate those new assets with a cost-based system. How you determine the opportunity cost of storage? The storage owners say, okay, I have a compromise solution. You want me to be at the maximum state of charge at 4 p.m. so I can have a 4-hour duration and be there at 8, where the Cal ISO has reliability problems because all the solar has left the system, and you need a ramping of 50,000 megawatts in 3 hours, 15,000 megawatts in 3 hours. In the new environment, capacity may not be the constraint. Ramping is the constraint. How fast you go from 4 p.m. to 7, 8 p.m. Storage is an important asset. So you pay me the opportunity cost so I can be in the maximum state of charge at 4 p.m. So now the ISO say, in other markets too, give me the state of charge as a bid. And I want to control that state of charge to ensure that you are at the maximum level at 4 p.m. So you can discharge, keep discharging from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. when I need you. And then you can charge in the evening or other times when the grid has enough, a lot of juice. Or you can charge it from your own in the morning from your own solar. So there is an intense debate between storage owners and ISOs. ISOs care about security. They care, of course, about the market. They want to integrate storage in the pricing. But in markets where we have retirements of coal, like in California, gas is there, but it has environmental constraints. Storage becomes an important asset, which in the next 2-3 years, but 2026, we need the worst time for the Cal ISO. You may have blackouts because you don't have enough supply. And you need the storage to come very fast in the market to have at 7, 8 p.m. For that, you need to control the state of charge. I don't know if this is... Europeans have the same problems. We have the same issues in countries like Spain because they have the duck curve in Spain, a lot of solar, so they are dealing with storage modeling, when to charge, when to discharge, about the state of charge, who controls it, constraints that I put in your operation. But if I constrain you as a generator storage in a discharge mode, how do I pay you? And what's the opportunity cost? And that's the big challenge, how to identify those settlement issues. Does it help you? Okay, thank you.
Just a small comment. Ideally, in a perfect engineering world, you would want all the storage facilities to be controlled by the system operator, by the ISO, who would monitor the state of charge and monitor. So, if I was king, I would make all the storage treated like the same way we treat transmission. Transmission solves locational congestion, storage solves temporal congestion. And you would make, then the ISO monitors the state of charge and operates it. And there have been some academic papers that addresses this problem to essentially create what we call financial storage rights, where you can submit your battery to the control of the system operator and get in exchange a financial instrument that gives you the right to a vectors of injection and the ejections that add up to 0 over 24 hours, and you choose the vector and you get paid the locational marginal prices based on that vector. But I'm not king, so I cannot do that.
I appreciate that comment, but now to bring you back to reality, no one is choosing that model. California ISO is given the options to storage to come as a transmission asset, which is a very important asset because you can defer transmission investments and do exactly what Smuller said, treat it as transmission. No one is following that regulated model. If I'm investing on storage, I want to control it, I want to be in the market, I want to make money in capacity, all ancillary services, energy. If I'm just on regulation, I can make enough money to have a good financial life just from regulation. So being a regulated asset as transmission forbids me from going to the market because you can't double dip. You cannot be in the transmission business and also be in the energy business. You choose. And I can tell you that pretty much no one is choosing the transmission model, even though it's a very good idea because it helps the transmission, defers transmission investment to control it. Europeans also have tried to control it, but that's not the way it works. If I'm an investor and I build a storage asset, I want to be in the business to control it and make money from participating in all those services. In other words, in the transmission model, you take advantage, you have an easy life, it's a transmission asset, you get one income. In the market, you take advantage of what we call multi-stack revenue model. I repeat, multi-stack revenue model. You have multiple revenue sources, all ancillary services, capacity, energy arbitrage. You don't have that if you are as a transmission asset. Even though I can see the benefits of what, as a transmission asset. Okay? So market has its own way of doing things, like it or not.
Oye, bueno, quiero pedir un aplauso y nos queda una pregunta y la última pregunta, digamos, para poder cerrar. Bruno. The last question. Last question. Okay.
Hello. Hi. Hello, Alexander. Thank you very much for your presentation. I am Mauricio Maturana from CVE. I'd like to ask you one of your recommendation about implement the offer market is separate the operational from the financial liquidation. So, what is your recommendation about the best institution to manage the financial liquidation? The coordinator could be, or maybe different kind of institution, like, I don't know, maybe a trade institution created by all the generators and traders, like in Brazil.
That's a great question. I want to answer this because this is exactly the work we're doing now in Europe. CFDs give you that flexibility. You separate operations from financing. If I have that instrument, I can choose, I'm not tied to my contract. I can choose the best option to meet my contract, which could be someone else or could be the market, the wholesale market, if it's cheaper. And the same thing with load. I can decide when to consume or not consume, and the CFD gives me that option. The problem with the CFD market is that Europe, the market last year in the energy crisis failed in the CFD market, so we're trying to reform it for many reasons. You can have a contract, I can have a contract with you. The problem is though, is that I have the option, the market is not liquid. And why is not liquid? Because customers, let's say a big industrial load that can have a financial contract with a renewable source. This is good because it gives incentive for financing the renewable. It gives certainty for payment to the industrial load. We need to promote that as part of the decarbonization for the renewable industry. Why has not happening to a large extent? It's not happening because me as a customer, I don't want to be tied to a 20-year contract with you as a supply, as a renewable asset, for example. I want a 1-year contract. As a generator, to do financing, I want a 20-year contract at the CFD to do this for certainty. So there is a mismatch of preferences. So we're looking at different alternatives how to do this. Now, what about if you are a small player and you cannot have a contract because you are small? So for small players, the model we're pushing, and I think we have discussed this with Samuel many times, is to have a central underwriter to guarantee, maybe the government, to guarantee those contracts for small players. Now, a big player may not need those things, but to create liquidity in the market, to bring in the market small players, which are important to go towards decarbonization, the low carbon energy system, you may need a central underwriter, a bank, or somebody from the government to guarantee those contracts. And you need, of course, the regulator to monitor this situation. Even though reluctantly, instinctively, by principle, I don't want the government to be involved, we may need to do that because the market, at least the European experiences, it failed. So we need to go back to make some changes create liquidity in the market so we can have a lot of financial contracts to solve this problem, which means participation of the government or a central underwriter to guarantee those contracts. Maybe Shmuel, you want to?
Yeah, let's back off a little bit. There are two elements here. One is the day-ahead settlement or the daily settlement, and one is the long-term settlement. So what we are proposing is that, first of all, that all the settlements of the spot market, of the day-ahead and real-time prices, be handled by the coordinator. This is the basic step. And that creates that separation. You can, whatever contracts you have, the coordinator is going to dispatch centrally and then settle at the spot market with both the buyers and the sellers. It's all going to be through, so we need a new component, a new element of the coordinator, because currently that's not happening. Currently the coordinator only provides the information. Now that achieves a very important thing, that first of all, it separates the energy risk from credit risk, because once the coordinator becomes the central handler or central settlement authority in the day-ahead market, you no longer have to worry, you don't have to worry about the credit risk of the participants, which has a secondary effect on the market. Now, once you have that, and that becomes the settlement in the day-ahead and real time, becomes kind of a reference price, then you can do long-term contracts through contracts of differences, and then the question, you can do it over the counter, or you can do it again through some standardized mechanism if you want to do that. But now that only deals with the deviation between the reference price that you decide, or the price that you decide with your counterparty, and the spot market, and that can be handled through, again, either through a central mechanism or through a over-the-counter bilateral mechanism. But the major deviation, the major settlement, the principle has to be handled by the pool, who is going to achieve that purpose of separating the decisions of operating. So we move away completely from any kind of physical bilateral contracts, and it's all become financial. And it's how you split the settlement between the contract for difference and the basic spot market. That's a different issue. And there are arguments, and more people would argue that having some sort of clearinghouse for contracts for differences is beneficial, because again, it achieves more, it provides access to small players to kind of a verified, and again, it separates eliminates the worry about credit risk, which is a very big component in financial settlements in the electricity markets.
I want to add that once you have separated the energy risk and the credit risk, then financial institutions are very important for many reasons. And one of them is to provide cheap cost. From when you are going to finance a project, you need to go to the bank and get lower prices, lower capital costs, and financial institutions play a huge role there. But saying that, it's very important that within the system, we need to have required qualifications for the financial institution. It's not any institution. It's not that just I by myself with my brother can create a company and be a financial institution to guarantee the operation of the system. You have certain qualifications. So it's not any institution that we want to get into the market. You have those qualifications, and those companies that have those qualifications can be financial institutions participating, providing the liquidity, providing the cheap capital cost to the system.
I want to add one component. We had a question yesterday, and I think it's relevant here, of where is the income of the, because we advocate letting financial players to enter the market, and one of the question was where is the income of the financial players going to come from? Are they going to leech, basically increase the cost to consumers? And I think that the straight answer is that by having professional management of risk through financial institutions or having adequate management of risk, a lot of the benefit, a lot of the payment for that function is going to just come for reducing the cost of capital. One of the big issue is that when you have a market with a lot of volatility and a lot of risk, and especially credit risk, you end up with that the cost of capital is much higher, and because you go to the bank and they see a fluctuating income stream, and they're going to charge you a much higher interest rate on your loans. If you are stabilizing that through contracts for differences and through a proper management, risk hedging, that interest rate is going to go down significantly, and that's going to be a big source to feed all these additional players in the market.
Perfecto. Ahora sí, un aplauso por favor aquí para nuestros invitados. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos los que pudieron venir presencialmente acá al coordinador eléctrico, y también a todas las más de 200 personas que estaban conectadas en nuestra transmisión online. Va a quedar disponible la transmisión online inmediatamente. Vamos a también subir la presentación durante el día probablemente. Así que bueno, muchas gracias a todos y bueno, seguiremos debatiendo sobre este tema. Gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate all your help and management.